Hello, welcome back to everyone out there. I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. We have a new video today where I'm going to rank some of the internet's most degenerate, grease-filled, creepy individuals who unfortunately have graced our screens throughout our time on the internet. These are people I'm quite positive all of you know. You know, if you're on my channel, you probably have a good amount of knowledge on these lolcows. But if not, I welcome you to listen to my tier list and find out why I and many others think that these people ended up on this kind of list. Now, we mainly have lolcows from the more current era of the internet, but there are a few in here that have been around for a while. So, to start off, we have Mr. Nova Online, the French Onion Officer, the Diaper Dominator, the King of Crash Outs, you know, who I have covered the most on my channel. And, you know, if you've seen my TikTok, that's kind of where it all started out. I have to give this greaseball an S tier, just because he's the lolcow I know most about, and to me, he has the most notable moments. Now, I understand everyone's going to have their own opinion here, but this is just what my brain's cooking up. So, Nova at a S tier, I'm putting him up here just because he encompasses everything it means to be a lolcow. You know, through the years of him being online, he's been trolled relentlessly. He's made some of the cringiest shit I've ever heard and watched on the internet. You know, from the French onion soup meme to having Alexa drum up insult generators for him, to his insane housing situation throughout the years, and of course his degenerate age play, which then coincide with his numerous allegations. Now, being a lolcow and having allegations of certain stuff isn't something that, you know, they don't necessarily have to go hand in hand, but it definitely pops up a good amount. So these are all things why I think Nova Online has solidified himself as an S tier lolcow. Now, moving on to Jupiter's Hybrid. Now, Jupiter was one of the first lolcows that I saw online, and from the start, he really made my stomach shift, and not in the way that it does when I look at Nova. You know, Jupiter just made me feel really uneasy. He's got a real chilling vibe to him, so I'm gonna have to rank him in the B tier. You know, Jupiter has done some very, very degenerate things throughout his time on the internet, you know, from numerous allegations of being an online predator, to claiming he has a tail and fucking superpowers, so Jupiter definitely has some of the worst traits to give him the title of a lolcow. I just don't know a crazy amount about him to give him any more heat on my personal lolcow list, but I know he's done some fuck shit in the past, so that's why he's getting a B tier ranking. But now we move on to Alex Doerty. Big Goddamn Red, the king of sending creepy Snapchats to girls when he already has a girlfriend himself. But before I get off on that, let me tell you the background on Big Red. Alex Doerty was first brought into the internet life by his mother, Alicia Doerty, in which she would film videos of her big family of 13 and show some of their daily life, like packing their lunches for school, or shopping hauls, or just fun TikTok dances and trends. So Alex, being the oldest of all the kids, had the most notable social media presence, and soon he would start getting trolled by various girls online who would start to stitch and duet his videos and kind of bait him into thinking that people actually thought he was attractive and they wanted him. Eventually, though, Alex would get a girlfriend and they would go on to date for about 2 years. But Alex would throw all of that away when he went off to college, and the people who had been trolling him didn't stop. But Alex didn't see this as a troll. He saw all these girls Snapchatting him and sending him messages as people who actually wanted to get with him. So he ended up throwing his relationship into the toilet to try and get with these girls who were just using him for TikTok views. He's had a lot of messages and pictures leaked of him, one being a mirror picture and where he showed his abs, if you want to call them those. And with those, it's just brought more trolling and hate to him. So with all this being known, I'm gonna put Big Red in the A tier just because I think he's got a lot more to come. And with so much weird shit already coming out about him, I just feel like his story is far from over. But this now brings us to our next lolcow, Amberlynn Reid. And from what I know about Amberlynn, she seems like an incredibly wishy-washy person, jumping from girlfriend to girlfriend, never being able to stick to any diets, but also trying to make that the focal point of her channel. It just seemed like she was unable to stick to anything, but always promising that she was going to both the people who surrounded her in her personal life and the viewers who interacted with her page. Amberlynn would eventually ditch the weight loss content on her channel and just try and post vlogs as her main form of content, which was super boring and wasn't getting much traction or interaction at all. So in order to keep her internet persona alive, she gravitated back towards her weight loss content. Overall, Amberlynn is a pretty boring lolcow in my opinion, and it could be just that I don't know enough about her, so for me she's gonna go in the D tier. On we press to Cyrax. This dude has to be one of the most horrifying lolcows to look at, with what seems like new life forms spawning on top of his head, and teeth you could properly grate cheese through if you put it at if you put it at the right angle. Cyrax is a scary guy to look at, and he's done some very similar things to Nova, you know, with the sympathy baiting and trying to make everyone care about him by being sad and talking about how much his life sucks and his relationships and oh no, poor me kind of bullshit, you know, just trying to drum up some kind of support. Cyrax has also had some in-person interactions. There was recently a video of a man who showed up to Cyrax's house and started beefing with him, and then eventually the dude filming him punched Cyrax in the head, which, you know, I don't support that at all. Don't show up to these lolcows houses. That's never a good idea. Cyrax has also had many allegations thrusted towards him, the very similar ones to, our boy Nova Online, which is texting underage people online. So, he has a lot of low quality traits to be a lolcow. So for me, Cyrax is going to go in the A tier list because he's such a degenerate, like shit-stained drawers kind of degenerate. He just encompasses everything it means to have the title of a lolcow. Now this next person, I'm not sure if he necessarily has the title of a lolcow, but I've known about him for a good while because I saw a video posted by Moist Critical about this guy. His name is Paul Breach, a scary, creepy, gross individual who would constantly make videos responding to young girls through TikTok and trying to interact with them on TikTok lives. This guy is definitely a creep, and I haven't seen much from him in recent years, but during his reign as a TikTok creep supreme, he had a lot of people turning heads. Like if you have Charlie making a video on you, you know you did some fuck shit. So I wanted to give Paul Breach a C tier because his longevity was really poor, but when he was posting actively, he was one of the creepiest dudes on the internet. On we press to Daniel Larson. This guy's had a lot of shit go on in his life, and currently Daniel is in prison for making threats with an explosive and communication of threats, and I think he had one other threats with an explosive charge. He was caught making those threats online, and he was soon arrested after for it. He's currently still serving his sentence, but that's not all that makes Daniel a lolcow. For years and years, he had been online making an entire dream life and fantasy world about a former child star who appeared on America's Got Talent, and that is Grace Vanderwall. Daniel would post videos saying that the two of them were married and that he had an entire life with Grace. And, people were trying to keep them apart. And people in his comments and people who surrounded him would egg this on. There would be people in his comment section who'd be, making fun of him and saying that Grace wasn't with him, which, that's in fact true. But Daniel's perception of his relationship with Grace was, that they were together. And Grace didn't know about Daniel's presence, until the internet eventually got the message to her. And to my knowledge, I don't think she ever addressed Daniel publicly, because if I were her, I'd be scared out of my mind. This crazy dude on the internet keeps saying we're married. Like, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near him or his videos. So Daniel for me is going to go in the A tier because he's just one of the most notable and well-known lolcows, from his fucking ridiculous sounding ringtone to just everything that he's done to have his name in the internet sphere. Now we have Chris Chan. This guy, I would say, is probably the originator of lolcows. Chris Chan, he's just kind of like, he's the creator of the term. He was one of the first people to have the term lolcow coined as a description word for people who are like him. And there is so much information about this guy. Like, there's a documentary that spans about 80 episodes, and each episode runs for about an hour. Like, there's so much to know about this guy. It's hard to even tackle what to talk about first. But essentially, Chris Chan was a guy who was just determined to fall in love. And he would do so in various creepy ways, like holding up a sign in the mall hoping to find a single woman companion, and he would also post that same flyer that he would hold up in the mall around his campus at the time, like his college campus. Or in other ways, like he would try and win a rapping contest in order to send him and his love interest on a trip to Seattle. Chris Chan's persona has also revolved around a character that he created called Sonichu, which is a combination of Sonic the Hedgehog and Pikachu, and Chris would document Sonichu in various ways, from having like this little medallion where I've read and heard some things about what has happened to that medallion, and it doesn't sound very good. I'm not going to opine on it, but it doesn't sound very nice. So also making comics about Sonichu's adventure. Overall, Chris is just the epitome of being trolled. Like, there were so many people in the early days of the internet just trolling him as like fake internet girlfriends just to fuck with him. Like, from what I've seen and watched about this dude, it was just fake girlfriend after fake girlfriend made by various troll accounts and troll groups just to see his downfall. Chris Chan would also start selling his own personal merchandise, which we have seen other lolcows like to follow in those footsteps. So I think that Chris Chan really set the stage for all lolcows to come. And so for that, I have to give him the S tier ranking. Like, I definitely need to watch the full documentary on this guy because there's just so much fucking lore to him. I would need a couple weeks to just fully get all the information on him. But now we move on to more of a lesser known lolcow, because similarly to Paul Breach, he was only on the internet for a short period of time, but he was also a filthy creep who indulged in talking to underage people online and also dream role-playing on TikTok. This being Donovan Mayo. Donovan Mayo was more prevalent in 2023, where he would make a bunch of TikTok role-playing videos about him being in a Dream Minecraft server. And this was also my first introduction to Dream. I don't care for Minecraft, so I never stayed up to date on anything Minecraft related. So when I saw this weirdo making videos in costumes and voice changers talking about like dying in different dream worlds and shit, it just made the impression very off-putting to start. But Donovan Mayo had also gotten exposed for talking to underage people online, and he would actually make a response video, which isn't too too similar to a lot of lolcows. Most of them have shit come out about them and they just never respond to it. But he would fade into oblivion after that, and his online persona would fall with him. So that's why I'm going to give him a C tier, just because he was like the pinnacle of cringe during his time on the internet, but it was just for a short time. Now we have Josh Block, or World of T-Shirts, the man who has documented his most tragic downfall. From being a lovable guy who just makes content traveling around New York, to a depraved human who abuses alcohol and has racked up a number of different interactions that have made everyone around him dislike him more and more. Josh has been on TikTok for around 5 years, and when he started, he was just that guy who would yell in Times Square about being the king of New York, and he seemed very wholesome to begin with. However, this would all go down the drain when he introduced himself to alcohol. He would start getting belligerently drunk and doing some horrendous things on live streams, like assaulting people and property, yelling and swearing at people and saying different slurs because he just couldn't control himself when he was drinking. People would really start to dislike Josh because he was just a nasty drunk. And he's been in the hot scene recently too, with a video of him assaulting a woman on July 4th after breaking his sober week. Overall, Josh has really gone downhill since he first started on the internet. People have realized that he isn't going to break his alcoholism, and with that, he's just a very shitty person to be around. So for this, I'm going to give him a B tier, mostly for the fact that he is a very well-known face on the internet, and I feel like we're going to see a lot more of him as the days go on. And finally, we have Boogie2988, one of YouTube's first big stars. Boogie2988 has been on the internet for a really long time, and at first he was just known as the fat dude who sucked down loads of Mountain Dew. And at first he was known as a really awesome and nice guy, even being referred to as the Mr. Rogers of the internet. But unfortunately, he would let that fame go to his head, and he would start to go off the rails, saying some rather abhorrent shit on Twitter and just overall of his platforms. He would be saying shit like he deserves to be able to fuck models because he's famous and everything should just be given to him. After all this came out, he just seemed like a real self-entitled dirtbag. So for that, he's going to go in the B tier as well. He's just really lame, in my opinion, and he hasn't been up to anything too notable recently. But that's what I got for you guys today. Here's my finished Lolcow tier list. Here's all of my choices. I hope y'all learned a little bit from it, and if you disagree or agree with me, you can let me know down in the comments. I also decided to keep Nova in the background because I know how much y'all love looking at his face, so for your background entertainment, you got to look at that tub of pudding back there. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was very interesting to me to learn about some of the lolcows that I wasn't too knowledgeable about, but once again, I appreciate everyone for stopping by and watching another video. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Deuces.